tackles a lot of the outward-facing things, and I tackle a lot of the inward-facing things. So I'm kind of like the COO for what we're doing. This is Matt Sampson over here. He is one of the co-chairs for our communications committee that we have. And we definitely enjoy coming around and talking across the state boundaries and finding out more about what you all are doing and passing these ideas back and forth. It's a big part of what I think can make a huge difference. We're doing it inside of our state as well. Passing back great ideas, developing playbooks, sharing them around is fantastic. It's also fun for me. I went to Carnegie Mellon so I spent several years over there in Pittsburgh. I also have many friends in Philadelphia, and so I've been up there for a few times as well. So it's kind of fun to, whenever I can come across the border. All right, so we're gonna walk through 4 things here. Generally, I'm gonna do some introductions on one of the main concepts that we use and explain a little bit more about how that works. Then we're gonna actually run the concept in talking about a topic, and that topic that we proposed was volunteering itself. So you'll see how that works on there. And then I'm going to try to leave a little time at the end to get some more feedback from you. All right, volunteering. You've already started about this, you already started talking about this. The difficulty here is it is hard to recruit volunteers, because they do kind of just leave, or they find that, oh, well, that's not exactly what I thought this was going to be, and so I'm out of here. Or I want to do something else. Or you might have some battles or different things. We've had all of that ourselves. So, a couple things that have happened to us, hardships that we kind of go through. So one, everybody in our founding board is gone, and except one person. There's one person that's still around from that. So we are doing this turnover. I put this up here. We've had 2 attempted mutinies. People who wanted to take over the entire party, get enough board seats to kick everybody else off and take over the agenda for it. And one of the things that we used to get past that, and actually keep almost all of them around, was the technique that I'm going to show you today. We also lost half of our followers in the 2020 election. Because of different people that we had supported, and a lot of people did not like that, and so they took off. We spent like our first year with only 12 active volunteers, and it took us a long time to get to that very first candidate. So here's where we are now today. So we have 5 people on our candidate committee who do nothing but do vetting and research for candidates. So we have now endorsed by now about 35, and we have more that are showing up that are starting to go through our endorsement process. We have not all of our counties covered, but we have full teams that can run their own system in 3 of our counties, and we have 5 more leads that get us set up. We have a 5-person comms committee, which, as I said, Matt is a co-chair of. We have 3 to 5 people on our operations committee and our legislative committee. We have a whole committee just devoted to working with volunteer people. And we also are able to run, on average, an event every single week. And sometimes we can run 2 events at the same time, and we have like the people to be able to put this up and to staff this. And I put a lot of that credit into our ability to come together and figure out how to do these things and bring in a whole bunch of people when they do not agree. And sometimes, I won't say it got to like fist fights, but it got very, very agitated in how we do things and decide. Because this is a very emotional kind of thing, because we're talking about problems, we're talking about solving problems. So what did we do? How did we get to this point? The real secret here is psychology. That is the core to it. It's not any of the other things. It's how we do everything that we do. Now, specifically, it's that category of collaboration inside of psychology. Plus, this one technique that I want to show you today, which is called prioritized problems. The original name of this was called prioritized epic problems. So we sometimes also refer to it as a PEP debate. Originally it was a pep talk, and everybody's like, am I supposed to bring pom-poms? We're like, no. So we just call it prioritized problems now. I very firmly believe that traditional debate is breaking our country. It is the reason that we are where we are. give people a platform where they stand up and they tell you their opinions, and then you vote on it. And there is no correlation between the thing that gets the most votes and the thing that has the best outcome inside of our communities. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true, but there is no strong correlation between these things. So, science fiction has been telling us stories about this. I don't know if anybody watches Black Mirror, or the Orville had a fun episode about this. We can see these things a lot in where we are. And the core behind this, the kind of science and the biology inside of this, is that as we spend time trying to work on solving our problems, we spend easily 100 times more just thinking about our solution, implementing it, planning it, getting things together, getting people recruited, doing all these things into it, that eventually the solution replaces the problem in our brain. And if you go ask somebody and say, what are the problems that we're trying to deal, they will list off a bunch of solutions that they want to implement to solve the problems. And we stop thinking about the problems that actually need to get solved. So this exercise goes directly at that and brings us right back to the problems. And because we get that separation, we start to get into this place of fear. So what we do is we want to take that fear away by getting back directly to the problems, get out of this debate about the solutions, and come around to these understandings. So we have this general sort of problem statement about problems. The problem with problems, or the problem with solutions, is that if you take one problem and try to solve one problem at a time, you often will create new problems or make other problems worse. I do this in the corporate world as well. Oftentimes we'll roll out a thing and it's going great. And they're like, all right, we're ready to tackle the next problem. And so you roll out a solution to that one, and the first one gets a little bit wonky. Then you roll out the third solution, and that messes up the second solution and then the first solution. And by the time you get 4 or 5 solutions in, the stuff that you started with have completely been undone and reversed. And then maybe you go back and you work on it again and you adjust it and fix it. It's that core idea that if you are working on them separately, you're not paying attention to the impacts that you are having across these things. Example, open primaries. We're talking about this a lot. So, this is a list of problems that open primaries can solve. And this is a list of problems that open primaries cause. So my question is avoiding this problem more important than solving all of these? We don't ask ourselves that question. We say, oh, voting manipulation, that's bad. And then they shut down the entire rest of the debate and we don't get to talk about anything else. So we cause ourselves all kinds of headaches to solve a single problem. Likewise, ranked choice voting. We want to get this rolled out. The thing we always hear is, oh, it's going to be so confusing, we have to go around, we have to educate people, and that's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of money. But in the meantime, we're causing all of these problems that also take time and that they also take money, and that probably, I would say, have a much worse impact than confusion. If we just got started on these problems up above and solving them, it actually would make this problem a lot easier to solve.
And to add to that, you can also take those problems and make it more of a hurdle instead of a roadblock. And you can try to work out messaging can solve like a lot of the confusion problems, instead of taking it and saying, well, we need to solve the messaging problem first, and then we can get to everything else.
Yep. All right, so the number one rule of a prioritized problem debate is solve multiple problems at the same time, but don't make a higher order problem in the list worse when solving a problem lower in the list. Everything else extends from this rule. So it leads us to a format of clarification or collaboration that we use, a very specific version of this collaboration, which is that when we run into a conflict, when we have disagreements with each other, the first thing to do is to listen and understand the other person. But we have a very specific way to get there, which is this question here: what do you want to go away? This is the thing that differentiates between what is a solution and what is actually the problem. And it's kind of a magic question. You know, I'll say this, I don't know where this fits for everybody here, but in Maryland, we're very clear, most of us do not want Donald Trump. So they'll say, what's the problem? We need to get rid of Donald Trump. Wait, so the problem is getting rid of Donald Trump, and you want to get rid of that thing. Like, it just doesn't make sense as a logical thing. But if you ask the follow-up question of what do you want, what do you expect to see go away? Well, this thing is happening in my life and I don't like it. This other thing is happening in my life and I don't like it. And now we're getting into actual problems, many of which have very little to do with Donald Trump, but they are things that we need to solve inside of our communities. So when we get back to the problems behind our solutions, we start to really find the good, juicy work that we need to tackle. All right, so then we have to ask ourselves the harder question of how will we know if this problem goes away? Because we get fixated on our solutions, we start rolling out these solutions, and the measurement of whether we're solving the problem is whether or not we have implemented the solution or not. Which is different than whether or not the problem has gone away. And the difference, and I always break these off into two things. You got problem metrics, you got solution metrics. The solution metrics tell you whether or not you're following the plan that you decided to do. The problem metrics tell you whether or not you chose the right plan in the first place. And you need to have both. All right, then the prioritized problems gives us that prioritization to say what should we not make worse. So as we start to roll out this solution, start to do this thing, if these things get worse, we need to stop. And then we actually run often multiple solutions at the same time. And this was a big change. We would get into this space, we would spend a lot of time debating back and forth at the beginning of a project to decide on what we should do and how we should roll it out so that when we all finally made the choice and get out there and start doing it, we're not fighting with each other anymore while we're out there. And then if we chose the wrong problem, we find out that we chose the wrong problem 9 months down the road, a year down the road, and we lost a year. So what we do instead is we say, you want to do it one way, you want to do it a completely different way, great. Get a team that wants to work with you, get a team that wants to work with you, you're going to try it out for a month, and you're going to bring back some results. You're going to do the same thing, bring us back some results. Then we're going to figure out, sometimes we figure out within a month that this is not quite the thing to do. Or we make some changes and adjustments. And so we keep progressing through step by step, and then we might find some things work, we might find that both things work, and we might find that both things are completely irrelevant. Another follow-up on this is, just because there's a prioritized list of problems does not mean that you have to solve those problems in order. You can go out of order. If the top problem is not your passion, you really like number 3, go for it, work on it. Just don't make number 1 worse. That's what the order is about. Know when you're affecting and making somebody else's life difficult. This is another one that kind of works in here as well, which is that if you find that in working on one of a lower problem, a higher problem is completely irrelevant, what you found is a dependency there, go ahead and move the other one up, because you can tackle 2 at once and get those things through. So we go through and we update these lists, we move them around, reprioritize them all the way. And then this one, test multiple solutions at the same time, and then compare how many problems does each solution solve. It's not just about, hey, we planned to do this and it worked. But we planned to do this and it worked, and it solved 5 problems. Oh, well, we planned to do this and it worked, and it solved that one, but it solved 9 others at the same time. That's a better solution. But we give options and we put them in a playbook. And in one county, this solution might be the better one for them, and they can get more people behind it, and they get more volunteers behind it. And in an entirely different county, this version of it just would not fly. But we build a playbook, and we know which ones are going to solve which problems in which order. All right, that's the prep sort of the concepts behind this stuff. Here's the actual format of it. There's really just 3 steps. Sometimes we'll do this as a panelist, and we'll give panelists the first choice to work. So we do a lot with like county council people and candidates and various folks, and we put them up on stage and we give them the chance to both propose the problems and then give the other candidates and the panelists respond to those problems, and then we toss it out to the audience. But we try to keep it short. You may notice down here we got things like 1 minute, 30 seconds, 1 minute. That's just enough time to get one thought out, and then you go on to the next person, and you can always get back in line. When we do debates and traditional debates, we let people get up there and they talk for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And everybody who's sitting in the audience is like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that maybe you're taking notes, and then but then this is over here, and it's all over here, and like, and the whole thing goes all over the place, and it's so hard to follow any single conversation that it allows those people to just toss out random ideas that do not work because they've mixed it in amongst a bunch of other ideas that do work. And so it makes it look like every idea is a great idea because they frame bad ideas that they really want to do in good ideas that everybody else wants to do. So we break that apart and we deal with them each individually. All right, let's practice this. And actually, if you don't mind, with the other with the other microphone here, if somebody has something that they want to chime, if you can go and hold the microphone for them.
Okay.
All right. So, our frame for this is going to be volunteering. I put some starter things up here to just get us started and to explain some of the things that we've been dealing with inside of Maryland that we're trying to get through. So one, we call harshing the buzz, which is that people come in and they're like, yeah, forward, I really want to do this, I want to do this kind of thing. And we were like, oh, we tried that 2 years ago and it didn't work. You know, and then they like try to join into something else, but they're not really excited about it because they came here for the thing that was really motivating them to get here. And so it gets us into this spot where we lose some enthusiasm. And we have to think about how are we controlling this thing. This is a problem that we have to solve. I'm gonna give you 3 up front. Here's number 2. Ghosting. Maybe it's similar, maybe it's for the same reasons, maybe it's not. But we have some people who come in and they're super excited about doing it, and then something happens in life. Something changes, something, who knows what happens, because they never tell us. They just stop returning our calls. And they're just gone. We're like, why? Like, did we do something wrong? Do we need to adjust it? The lack of information is such a big problem. If they just said, like, you know, hey, I hate your idea and I never want to be associated with you again, that's something we could work with. We could actually do something off of that and figure something out and come up with some different strategies on how we talk about things and how we market it. And when people do that, we love that because we get a chance to talk with them before they leave. And oftentimes we turn them back around and get them to come back in. But the independent problem is that sometimes they just leave and they don't tell us. You call them up, they don't return calls. You know, they were right there with you and now they are not. And then I also talked about this, we have conflict sometimes. People have different ideas about what's the right way to do this, and they start battling with each other. So let's put some of these things together. We got 3 things up here. I want to switch to an editing mode in just a minute. Who would like to raise a hand and let's apply this rule here of what's the most important problem on here? What is the one that we say, if we're working on these problems together, this thing should not get worse? All right, go grab. And just give me like 30 seconds as to why you think so.
Okay, so just guessing, I would say that people leaving is the biggest one. So whether it's because we harshed their buzz or because there was a personal conflict, they to me, it looks like they come to the center one of like people just dropping out.
All right. So that is our proposal problem. So she did it in under 1 minute. Fantastic. Round of applause. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to run a debate. I'm going to set a time off of about maybe like 5 minutes or so. Actually, I'll kind of feel it out as we go. So anybody have any response to that? There's a few things that you could do. You could ask a question about why she thinks this is number one. You could make a suggestion on something that you think would make this more punchy or workable. You could provide an example of like, yeah, I agree with you because of this. Or you can pose this and say, no, I disagree because of these reasons. Anybody want to add in?
Well, yeah, I have a...
Hold on, wait for the microphone to come up to you.
Okay. I have a thought about this. Why are we framing this as a debate as opposed to, for example, a conversation?
It's more of just putting a structure around it. So sometimes when we just have a conversation about this, people will start talking and then 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 talking. And if you don't have a structure with like a talking stick or some other mechanism that allows more people to be involved in it, then things could really start to spiral out, and then you get back into the problems of traditional debate where somebody is just monologuing along. So really this is just a way to structure the conversation to ensure that more people get a chance to talk. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes?
So this is a clarification for Rachel, right? So you selected the ghosting, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the disappearing ghosting. And if I understand from the moderator, our job is to debate and select the number one problem.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say one is higher than the other. I could maybe, but what I'm going to ask is it possible that one's nested in the other? So for example, if disappearing ghosting is the major problem, you would want to fix the key driver of what makes that a problem, which might be somebody harshed somebody's buzz so that they ghosted you.
That's what I'm saying. I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
So is the real problem disappearing, and that might be it, but the practical problem, the thing we want to solve for, is the harshing the buzz, because if we can solve for harshing the buzz, it'll solve the disappearance.
So I would say it's one thing that contributes to disappearing, but it's not the only thing probably. So if we were going to take like a metric of like how many volunteers do we lose in a year, we can measure that. We won't always know why. And again, it could be conflict, it could be life events, it could be they got a promotion, it could be they moved, it could be we harshed their buzz.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a facilitation point in here, which is just to point out what this means in sort of a solution thing. So what we're saying here is that one of our primary things that we need to do is to figure out this ghosting problem. And so this is something that we have looked at and tackled. So one of the solutions, for example, that we did is that's why we have a volunteer committee. Some people volunteered and said, I will keep calling this person until they respond to me. I will track them down, because everybody else is off doing other different events and everything, so nobody had a chance to follow up with somebody. And amazingly, half the people that they actually got in touch with came back and said, yeah, like nobody's responded to me. I reached out and nobody reached back and we didn't talk about things. Now the reality of it, when we dig into it, is yes, we sent them 3 or 4 different emails. They just didn't see them for whatever reason. They thought we weren't talking to them. Each of these things is an independent problem that has come out of the conversation, but because we tackled that because we put that at the top of the list and made that one of the more important things, right? If we start working on harshing the buzz or stuff, and as a result, we stop calling people, we have made the first problem worse. So that's how the order works.
I would argue, I'm Christine, by the way. I would argue that the the buzz should be the priority. As someone who pops in and out of the forward party, helping when I can, establishing expectations early on of what your priorities are, what you're capable, what your skill set is, and allowing the party to understand that, like mine is running for office and helping candidates run that way. I know that I'll get a text in the spring of the year when candidates are looking to run for office, and so I may not hear from the rest of the year. So I personally think that addressing the harshing the buzz initially would help to deter and setting those expectations of what the party can give to that person and what that person also can give to the party. And so if you establish that baseline early on, then you don't necessarily see it as ghosting per se, but more of a level of expectation as the year progresses.
All right, I'm going to restate this because this is a very important sort of thing and distinction, and it's part of what makes this so difficult. If you might reduce the number of ghosts that you have to call if you onboard them correctly in the beginning. Sometimes this is not an easy debate to figure out, and you just try it out, and that's what we did. So we tried it in one order, got one result. We tried another order, got a different result, and we figured out which one was the best. So, but I like that. That's great, and it gives you the influence that different people come from different backgrounds. She doesn't represent everybody that might have ghosted, you know, and for her it was just that, okay, during this time of year, I gotta do other things and then I can't do this thing. And then I'll come back later. We have those people as well. They're not really ghosting us, you know, and then when we show up and it's like, you know, oh, where have you gone? Please come back. And like, oh, stop bugging me. I can't deal with you right now. And then we have actually made not an enemy, but, you know, we've actually pushed people further away because we're tackling the ghosting, because we don't understand their problem. Great point. Thank you. Anybody else?
I heard what you're saying about like when someone comes to the group and has like a skill set to offer that is seasonal or episodic or things like that. But my understanding of harshing someone's buzz, I'm going to use an example that's sort of relevant to forward, is someone comes to a meeting and they're like, I am so for UBI, I love Andrew Yang, like everything, that I'm for it. And we're like, well, it's not really, you know, what we're necessarily like starting with. It's not one of our priorities. It's not a platform. It's not really one of Forward's like missions right now. It is an Andrew Yang thing, and it gets confusing. So that to me is an example of like someone comes, they want to do this, and we're like not really working on that. But that's different than what you're saying of like, yeah.
But it's also setting the expectation. Like, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I love that you have that passion. This is where Forward is, and like, you know, if Forward decides to move forward with addressing that Yang stance, that you knew you can contact that person.
Yeah. So that's a good connection. Yeah. But we don't want people to think we're doing something we're not, and you know what I mean. So it's like,
Yeah.
But like I think that's a great point you were saying of like when people come and the onboarding you were saying is like we're clear about what we're working on. These are the committees you can join. We're having breakout sessions about these things. Where does your skill set fit in so we can stay connected? That works for you. And then they honestly, instead of just going away, say, yeah, I can come to 2 meetings a year. I could do things at night and write op-eds and send things to my local paper. You know what I mean? Like it's a two-way kind of street, but maybe the fact that we don't have enough people is at the core of like, we really try hard to answer every email, to get in touch with someone in their local area. We set up emails and sometimes it gets, you know, hey, let's set up a meeting and we'll talk about Forward, and then they often pan out. Sometimes they get canceled, sometimes somebody goes to, you know, so like systematizing it, we've been working on that, and I think that's a key to like success. I don't know, kind of strayed a little there, sorry.
Yeah. No, I like it. Yeah. I already know the song. And while you're doing, so let me just say real quickly that, was it go? Oops. Okay. So one of the things in this sort of space and the disappearing and the excitement about this is we discovered another problem in evaluating these things, which is the thing we're talking about right now, which is that we can't separate our solutions from our problems. So like UBI, somebody's like, I'm super into UBI. And so we were like, okay, well, we're not really working on it right now. And then what we learned to ask was, why? And they're like, oh, well, I'm really into UBI because, you know, my community has a lot of people who are out of work. And we're like, oh, we've got a committee we got some people who are working on that. Or we don't yet, but we have a thing we call the 3-legged stool, which is to get anything started, we gotta find 3 people. So I'm like, your first job is to find 2 other people who want to work on this with you, and you can start your own committee.
That's a great answer.
And now they're passionate, and they're out there, they're going out and they're doing recruiting on our behalf to try to find 2 other people who will work on UBI with them.
Oh, that's great, yeah. I just wanted to, mention, I think Brian brought up, I think it was 45%, there was a Gallup poll that said 45% of people are U.S. adults are independents now, and I think maybe this is optimistic of me, but hopefully we're just at the cusp of this tidal wave